Hi, my name's Emily and I'm the designer behind Snuggle Duck Crochet. Today I want to teach you how to do tapestry crochet. Tapestry crochet is a type of crochet technique that involves changing between two different colors of yarn. I use tapestry crochet in a lot of my patterns and I think it's a really useful skill that you can use to take your crochet to the next level. In this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to read a tapestry crochet pattern graph, how to be working with two different colors of yarn, how to change between two colors of yarn, that's the most important part, and then I'm also going to be teaching you other tips and tricks that are going to keep your tapestry crochet looking wonderful and beautiful. Alright, let's get into the tutorial.
So before we start any actual crocheting, I want to explain to you how to read this graph pattern. So the numbers here represent the number of rows that you're doing. This side says the odd number of rows and this side says the even number of rows. This row represents how many stitches are in the row. They're reading from right to left, presuming that you are a right-handed crocheter. So what's important to note is that we're going to start here and go here. We're going to add a stitch and turn our work, and we're going to flip it. So it's kind of like we'll be crocheting the pattern in reverse, but for this line, it doesn't really matter because that's just white. Then we'll turn, flip back to the right side and crochet along there. And then we're going to flip, start crocheting on the wrong side, and that's where we'll have our first color turn. That will make more sense as we go along. Okay, to start, I am going to make a slip knot. And then because our pattern calls for 20 stitches per row, I am going to chain 21. That extra stitch will be for turning into our work when we work in that first row. All right, I'm going to count them just to double check that I have 21. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. All right, so now we're going to begin the process by working into the second chain from the crochet hook. Now you can work into the chain what I would call, this is the front side of the chain and this is the back side. So you can work going into the front side, which is pretty typical in crochet work, but I actually prefer to work into the back side and to crochet into these little bumps that go in between each of the stitches, the ones right in the center. I find that that gives me a smoother finish when I'm working a border in the end. So I have my first bump. You can see the two chain or the two sides of the normal stitch on either side. So I'm working into this bump. So I'm going to insert my hook just under that one piece of yarn. But before I yarn over, I need to work my second color into this. Otherwise, these bottom rows are going to be completely white, while these middle rows are going to be white along with my secondary color, which in this case is green. And I want this crochet swatch or any piece to have an even coloring in the background all throughout. So I'm going to start by adding in my secondary color, green, right away. So here's our tail end, and I'm just going to kind of drape this over my crochet hook and get that to stop with the pointer finger of my crochet hook hand. And so my hook is inserted into the back bump of the chain stitch, and I'm just lining up the green yarn right next to that. And then I'm going to yarn over, pull my crochet hook through, yarn over, and pull through both stitches. I'm going to repeat that process all the way down. I'll do it again for you. So here is the bump of the chain stitch. I'm going to insert my hook into that bump. I'm going to make sure that the green color is directly adjacent to that bump. I'm going to yarn over, pull that loop through. I'm going to yarn over and pull through. So we're We're gonna keep repeating that process all the way down. Insert into the bump. Make sure that green yarn is adjacent, like so. Yarn over. And then yarn over and pull through. It is a little bit more difficult to work into the back bump of the chain, but I think it's worth it because you get a much prettier finish in the end. So make sure that it's adjacent, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over and pull through just like it's a normal crochet. All right, we have our last 3 stitches to work into. Let's finish this row together. We're gonna insert our hook under that back bump. Make sure that green yarn is right adjacent to that stitch. I'm gonna yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. We're going to insert that hook. Make sure that green yarn is nice and adjacent. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and then we have our last one. Honestly, working into the chain is the hardest part of tapestry crochet. So once you're done with this, you're gonna be good to go. Okay, I just finished working all those single crochets into my chain stitches, and that should look something like this. You should be able to see the green yarn just peeking out. If we flip to the back side, that's gonna be a lot more prominent. Something you can do is you can kind of like tug on the stitches, so that way you can prevent any of the green yarn from like bunching up or like making the yarn do weird things. Like you can technically just like slide the green yarn right through. We want that to be as straight and as possible. All right, so now we have finished row 1 and we're gonna start working into row 2. Now it's important to note that all the odd sides on these patterns are referred to the right side of the crochet, and all of the even numbers refer to the wrong side of the crochet. So that is important because that tells us how we're going to hide our yarn. So we are going to chain 1, and that's our turning stitch, and then we're going to flip our work like normal. And then the key with this green yarn is whatever direction you're turning in, make sure this green color stays on the wrong side, because we don't want this extra green color to show on the front side of our work. So then, just like normal, we are going to be crocheting into our stitches. I think they look like little V's. You're gonna be crocheting into the V like normal, but we're going to have this green color as an additional thread. So you're gonna just work your hook under that green and crochet into the V. So insert, yarn over, and then we're gonna finish off the stitch like normal of yarn over and pull through. One of the ways I like to think of it is that this green yarn is like almost sitting on top of the stitches or right beside the stitches, and I'm just crocheting over it. It's not actual yarn that I'm crocheting with right now. It's just something that I'm pulling along with me. This method is also really good if you need to hide any like tails in other crochet pieces. You can technically just like tapestry crochet them until you run out of tail, and then they're all woven in for you and you don't have to weave them in anymore. But yeah, I'm just going to work into my crochet stitches as normal, just with the additional green color. I'm just pulling this green color along and making sure it's about adjacent level with the stitches before I insert my hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops. So I'm just normal single crochets just with an extra color towing along for the ride. All right, and it's our final stitch, so we're going to insert our hook. All right, okay, we made it to the end of our second row, so we are going to chain one and begin turning. Note that instead of turning and bringing our secondary color around with us like we did when we were crocheting from row 1 into row 2, we are actually going to keep the secondary color in the back. We want to keep the secondary color hidden on the wrong side of the work, so that way when you're displaying your tapestry crochet piece that you're not seeing all of these little marks in the front. I can show you better what that looks like once we have more rows. So then we're going to continue to crochet single crochets while working over our secondary color. So we just insert into our normal crochet stitch while we have that green color working adjacent. We're working in our right-sided row, so these are going to be all of your odd rows. We want to keep that yarn in the back to help hide it as much as possible. You can already start to see like the green kind of peeking through, and that's inevitable, but we also don't want the green to be super prominent. So we want it to just be there, but subtly. So we're going to insert into our crochet stitch like that. Make sure that the secondary color is also on top of that crochet hook. Yarn over, have 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both loops. Continue doing that all the way down the 3rd row. I'm going to count the stitches to make sure we stop 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Shoot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. The fun thing about crochet is you have to be prepared to face the reality that you may not know how to count as well as you think you did. All right, so we have officially crocheted our first 3 rows of our pattern. Went 1, went 2, went 3, and we're going to start row 4, which is where we're going to have our first color changing stitch. So by reading the pattern, I can count and see that we have 9 white stitches followed by 1 of our secondary color. In this case, it's green stitch, followed by 10 of the white stitches. So I'm going to turn my work, and then we're going to show you the process of how to change colors. All right, so let's turn the row. We're gonna chain 1 for a turning stitch, flip the work, because we're working on the wrong side. We want this front yarn to stay towards us. So you can see before we turn the row, there's this little green vertical stitch. That's what we're trying to hide from the right side. So when we were doing the right side, we kept the green yarn in the back like this, but since we're working in the wrong side, we're keeping it towards us in the front like this. So insert, just gonna crochet single crochets like we have been normally until we get to that 9th stitch. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, we have our 8 stitches, and this one is the 9th. Pay close attention because this is where the magic happens. So we're going to start off like we normally would. We're going to insert our hook into our single crochet stitch, making sure that we're also going under our secondary color, as that's the yarn that we're carrying. Then we're going to yarn over with our working yarn. We're going to pull up a loop. Now, instead of yarning over and pulling up a loop with the white yarn, we're going to cross that yarn over. I'm actually going to physically cross my skein over, and that will help prevent the yarn from getting tangled, because let me tell you, it is really rough to work out the tangles. And then we are going to yarn over with the green and pull that green through those 2 stitches. So you can see we have a white stitch here. It has like that white top, it has those white sides, but in the center we have that green loop that's pulled up, and this loop will be the top of the next stitch, which is why we want to do that color change in the middle of the stitch. Then what I'm going to do is, now my white yarn is the yarn that I'm carrying, and I'm still going to have that to the side towards me. I'm going to insert my hook into under that stitch right there. Here's my working yarn, or here's the yarn that I'm carrying. I'm going to yarn over with the green. So I have 2 green loops on my hook. I'm going to cross that green over because we're only having 1 green stitch. So doing the 1 stitch of color change is always kind of annoying because you're flipping right back, but it is worth it in the end, I promise you. So this yarn is being held by my thumb there just to keep it secure. I'm going to yarn over with the white yarn and pull it through my 2 loops. Then the rest of this row is white stitches, so I'm going to crochet as I was before. So working with the white yarn and carrying the green yarn along with us. We're gonna do that for 10 stitches. Here's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, we're going to chain 1 as our turning stitch. We're going to keep our green yarn towards the back as we flip, so that way it stays on the wrong side, and we're going to continue chaining, or we're going to continue crocheting into row 5. Okay, so you can see that row 5, it has 3 green stitches, or black stitches on the pattern. We're using green stitches here before changing back to white. So here I have 9 white stitches before I'm changing colors. So 1, 2, 3, and notice because I am chaining, and notice because I'm crocheting on an odd row that I'm keeping my working yarn towards the back of the piece rather than the front. You always want to be aware of where your yarn is depending on if you're working on the right side or the wrong side of the piece. Okay, 8. All right, here is lucky number 9. I don't know if 9's actually lucky. We're just gonna say it's lucky for this crochet. So, just like we did before, we're gonna insert our hook into that stitch, and then we're gonna make sure that the second color is adjacent. We're going to yarn over, we're gonna pull up that loop. So those 2 white loops should be on your hook, but we're not going to yarn over and pull through with the white. We're going to cross that white over, cross our white skein over, then we're going to start working with our green yarn. We're going to yarn over and pull that yarn through those 2 white loops on our hook. And now we're going to make 3 green crochet stitches. So we're going to keep the white yarn on the back because that's the color we're carrying right now. Going to insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 green loops, that's stitch 1. Insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, that's stitch 2. And here is our final stitch, which means that we have to complete the color change. So I've yarned over, pulled up a loop, so now there's 2 green loops on my hook. I'm gonna cross my yarn over, cross my green skein on top of my white one, so that way everything stays untangled. And I'm going to continue working with my white. So something to note is that when you are changing colors, you're gonna pull that color that's changing from the working yarn to the carrying yarn. You're gonna pull that over. Once this stitch is up though, and the stitch is overall secure, you can move the carrying yarn back to where it's supposed to be. And since we are crocheting an odd row right now, the carrying yarn should be on towards the wrong side or away from you. All right, give it a nice little tug. All right, we've completed 5 rows. Time to go to row 6. Okay, so for row 6, you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our secondary color stitch, which is green, and we only have to crochet 7 of the white stitches before we do our color change. So I'm going to chain 1, I'm going to turn my work, and then you can see these nice little stitches that let us know that it's the wrong side and that we need to keep our yarn here. Told you it would be clear to see once you crocheted more. You can insert that hook and just make a single crochet. Doing 7 single crochets. Since working in the wrong side, our working yarn is closest to us. I could just split the yarn. Oh, well, it'll be okay. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7. So the last stitch before the color change is actually when the color change happens. So if I have to crochet 7 white stitches, the color change is happening in the middle of stitch 7. So I'm just gonna make sure. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And stitch 7 is on my hook right now. So I'm gonna yarn over, pull up a loop, and so we have those 2 white loops. I'm gonna cross, bring my white yarn down in front of me. I'm gonna pick up that green yarn. We're gonna pull through. That has completed stitch 7. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 white stitches, and now we can begin crocheting our 5 green stitches. So we're gonna insert our hook, And because we're crocheting on a wrong side, we're actually gonna keep that working yarn closer to us instead of bringing it to the back like we would if it was the right side. Oh, my tension got a little funky there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and because this is the last stitch, this is where the color change is happening. So we have our 2 green loops on our hook. We're gonna cross over, cross the skein over. We're gonna pick up that white yarn, make it our working yarn again. Yarn over and pull through those 2 green loops. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green stitches. And we're gonna continue crocheting the white stitches for the rest of the row. I hope now you can see in the wrong side, like we're having these little bumps here too. When we're going from right side to wrong side, I think they look a little bit neater. These look a little curvier, but it's fine. We can still clearly tell it's the wrong side, so we want to keep this yarn on this side when we are turning. So we're going to turn our work. Crochet. Sometimes I turn my work and then I crochet the stitch, which is silly of me. So we can see in row 7, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the white stitches before the color change. I think you should be starting to get the idea of how tapestry crochet works. There's a lot of little details to remember, but once you get the hang of it, it comes pretty naturally to you. Basically, you always want to keep your working yarn towards the wrong side of the crochet piece, whether that wrong side is in front of you or not, and that the last stitch of a color is where the color change is going to happen. So we have 7 white stitches before when we need to do the color change. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this is stitch 7, insert hook, yarn over, pull up loop. We have the 2 loops on our hook, cross over, cross that yarn skein over. Keep everything nice and untangled. Gonna pick up that green color, yarn over and pull through the 2 white loops. Gonna move our working white yarn to the back. We are crocheting 7 of the green stitches this time. The nice thing about a diamond pattern is that it's pretty easy to visualize where the stitches should go going, even if you're not counting. You can just tell, oh, I'm doing either one more or one less stitch than I did this time, depending on where you are at in the pattern. 4, 5, 6. That white yarn is still in the back right there. Okay, here is lucky number 7. Actually, lucky number 7. Gonna insert our yarn over, pull up a loop. Those are 2 green loops. Gonna cross over, hold that secure with our thumb while we're doing the change. Then we're going to yarn over with our white yarn. And now our carrying yarn has become our working yarn again. We're going to continue crocheting. I believe it's 6 more white stitches. I'm kind of regretting not making this diamond perfectly in the center, but that's okay. And everything can be perfect in life. Ah, my pattern. there we go. That is row 7 of our pattern. I do want to note that some people like to keep track of their rows by like crossing them off. Personally, I just can visualize how many rows I'm at by kind of seeing these natural kind of ridges form. So I know that one of these little rectangles is 2 rows. So 1, 2, 3, and then our bottom row isn't quite complete. So I know that's just 1. So 3 times 2 is 6. So I know we've just done 7 rows. So that's how I like to count my stitches. All right, I'm gonna continue crocheting and I'll meet you again when we get closer to the top. All right, as you can see, I've made a lot of progress just working back and forth. You can see the diamond shape clearly starting to take form. And I have just a couple more rows, 5 exactly, before we finish off this swatch. So I'll do the final 2 with you. Just going to do our turning chain, and this here is an odd row. It's row 15, so we're keeping that yarn in the back on the wrong side. Doing single crochets, well, essentially we're crocheting on top of our green yarn. All right, this is our last stitch before we change colors. So this means this is a stitch we are changing colors in. I have 2 of the white loops on my hook, crossing over, holding with my thumb, moving that yarn. Gonna pick up the green, yarn over, and pull through those 2 white loops. Gonna crochet 3 green stitches. Okay, and on 3, we're going to change the color back to white, 2 green loops, cross over, and then we are going to yarn over with our white and pull that up through the 2 green loops. We're going to continue crocheting with our green in the back, all the way to the end of the row. All right, final stitch in that row. I'm gonna do our turning chain, flip our work, keep that green on the back side because this is our wrong side. It's our final row of color change. After this, it's just gonna be back to all white stitches so we can round out the background. All right, this is our last stitch for the color change. So we are going to make sure those 2 white loops are on a hook, cross over, bring our white yarn over with our green yarn and pull through. And we're going to insert our hook into the stitch, make sure we're carrying that white color, yarn over, pull up 2 loops, so there's 2 green loops, cross over, because we're only doing 1 green stitch. Gonna begin working with the white. That's it. That is the last color change of this swatch. Great job. I hope you feel a lot more confident about your color changes after this. Okay, I'm going to finish off the top row so that way we have this white space at the end, and then I'll show you how to crochet a border if that is relevant to the project that you're working on. All right, I've finished this piece. You can clearly see the diamond shape here, and we're on our last row in the last stitch. So if you were doing a pillow pattern, you could just finish one single crochet in that stitch, pull up a tail, cut it, and call it good. But if you're doing a blanket or a wall hanging, I recommend that you crochet all around this border just to give it a nice finished edge. And if some of these green, I don't even know what to call these, like these green little spikes from switching back and forth are sticking out anyway, that'll just help it to look more polished overall. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to crochet one into that final stitch. So that is where you would stop if you were just doing something normal. But if you want to do a border, you're gonna crochet two, then you're gonna crochet one more time. I've been carrying the green as I go, but I don't need to carry the green anymore, so I'm just gonna leave that out. No more carrying the green. And then you can kind of see there's like a little hole here. So I'm gonna insert my hook into that, and I'm actually going to go under one of the places where I had the green yarn from switching. So I'm gonna just crochet around that. And then there's another sort of hole here that I can stick my hook into, like right here. There we go. So I'm gonna like find, there's like a pattern of the turn stitch and then also the back of a single crochet where you can get your hook into. So continue just to put your hook in there while you go around the border. As such, it's roughly one stitch for each row. So this particular piece has 19 rows, so in theory it should also have 19 stitches on the side, not counting our corner stitch that we did. That's why we crocheted 3 in that one corner earlier. 2, all right, we're getting close to the end here. Okay. Sweet. So now, this is why I chose to crochet in all of those bumps earlier, because now instead of just being like one string or like one strand I'm crocheting into, I'm crocheting into these, like if this was a normal crochet stitch, and that actually makes it super helpful for doing borders. So for my first stitch, I'm going to crochet 3. That's 1 stitch for the side I'm currently on, 1 stitch for the corner, and 1 stitch for the new row that I'm working into. So here's our 3rd stitch. Ta-da! And we're just going to crochet, insert our hook into those V's, and crochet like normal. It is a little harder getting the hook into here just because they're a bit tight, but I find it has like a nice polished finish and you're not having like as big as a gap off the bottom, and I don't like the way that looks. So I think this just looks a lot nicer overall. just single crochet all the way around. Oh, yarn gone crazy. It's fine. All right, we're at our final stitch of this row. So it looks like that's our turning stitch here. So this is our last stitch. So we're going to crochet 3 in that last stitch. 1 for this row, 1 for the corner, and 1 for the new row. All right, so you can kind of see the gaps for when we had our turn stitches. And then also when you're going up this row specifically, if you're looking at the right side of the work, this will be the actual right side. It just looks a little more messy in my opinion from the turning. So I normally try to get like my hook right into here because that will help kind of loop around the secondary color and help to hide it just a little bit more. So there we're looping around that secondary color in the back, just covering up with our nice main color. All right, we're getting really close to the end. Instead of crocheting in the corner, I'm just actually going to do a slip stitch into our first stitch here, because if I go on top of this one, then I just feel like it would look a bit awkward, and we already have like a nice kind of start to there, and it'll just look more natural. So once we get to the top corner, I'm just going to do a slip stitch, make it all nice and connected, pull up a tail. I'll make it long enough so that I can easily sew it in. Take my scissors and trim. So I pull it out, then our secondary color is still attached, so I'm gonna make sure that's nice and trimmed, so I'll get that. All right, and there you have it. You should have approximately 1 tail in each corner. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can just really quick take one of your darning needles and sew that in. And then you have a beautiful tapestry crochet pattern for you to display in your home.
Thank you so much for watching my tapestry crochet tutorial. If you found this video helpful, please go ahead and give it a like. And if you want to stay in touch for more crochet tutorials, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I hope to crochet with you later. Bye!